Hello and welcome. It was an historic speech, much anticipated by Muslims across the world. But has the rhetoric translated to any real change? It's been 1 year since US President Barack Obama spoke in Cairo, promising to repair the damage done to his country's relationship with the global Islamic community.
I've come here to Cairo to seek a new beginning between the United States and Muslims around the world, one based on mutual interest and mutual respect, and one based upon the truth that America and Islam are not exclusive and need not be in competition.
His comments in Egypt last June signaled a clear break from the policies of his predecessor, George W. Bush, and he reached out to Islamic nations calling for an end to the, quote, cycle of suspicion. Not once during the speech did he use the word terrorist, instead urging Muslims to end extremism. Mr. Obama also acknowledged the US mistakes in Iraq and made an impassioned plea for the rights of Palestinian people. But a year later, many Muslims remain skeptical, pointing to Washington's reluctance to join the global condemnation of Israel's deadly raid on a Gaza-bound aid convoy this week. Critics also say the US president has turned up the pressure on Iran's nuclear program, increased drone attacks in Pakistan, and failed to close the Guantanamo Bay detention center. Mr. Obama's supporters argue that he has repaired a lot of the damage done during the Bush years and is rebuilding trust around the world. So today we ask, has Barack Obama successfully engaged with the Muslim world, or has he defaulted on his Cairo commitments? Remember, you can join our show with your conversation by SMS or email, and you can also phone in. We'll take those calls on the show too. Joining me now to discuss these issues is Rashad Hussain, President Obama's special envoy to the Organization of the Islamic Conference, the OIC. He also serves as Deputy Associate Counsel to the White House, focusing on national security, new media, and science and technology issues. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a real pleasure. Now, I've got to ask you one thing that's very much in the news right now is what happened in Gaza, just outside Gaza. One thing that the president failed to do last year in his speech was to be critical of Israel on human rights. And of course, with what happened now with the flotilla, the aid flotilla, that seems to add to the skepticism people have about America really trying to engage with the Muslim world.
Well, I think you saw last year in Cairo, the president recognized that this is an issue that has been the source of much tension between the United States and Muslim communities around the world, and he recognized that as a central issue and was one of the first issues that he addressed in his speech. Of course, for me as a Muslim, recognizing that it's the first Qibla in Islam, I understand the importance of it as well. And as you mentioned in the introduction, the president spoke to the need to protect the security, the rights and the dignity of all people in the region. And in that regard, we have seen, the humanitarian situation that exists in Gaza is, of course, it's unsustainable and it's unacceptable. And we will continue to work with the international community and on the ongoing efforts to make sure that humanitarian aid continues to be allowed into Gaza as much as possible.
Now, of course, I'm trying to get your insights into the way the White House thinks. This isn't obviously just a Muslim issue here. We've got an attack on a humanitarian aid convoy. I'm wondering why America wasn't more critical, more condemning of what happened. I mean, had it been any other country but Israel, there might have been a very different reaction.
Well, I mean, our statement is very clear that we regret the loss of life. Also, I think the presidential statement before the UN Security Council speaks for itself. And the important thing now is that we're forward-looking in this regard to ensure that nothing like this happens, and that, as the president outlined in the historic address that he gave in Cairo, that we really redouble our efforts to work towards a two-state solution to this conflict, because that is really the way that we can address these types of incidents in the future to ensure that nothing like this is allowed to happen again.
Are you in the White House having to battle a credibility issue because of what's happened now with Gaza at the moment? Is it damage limitation?
Well, I think it's very clear, and we've been clear about this, that we understand that this is a central issue for Muslims all around the world. And the president, on the second day in office, appointed Senator Mitchell to give you an idea of the importance that he places on this issue, not waiting till the end of the term or waiting towards a potential second term to deal with this issue, but really giving ourselves as big of a window of opportunity to deal with this issue throughout the administration. It's something that I think that you'll see we continue to be persistent on, and we won't waver on. We will not walk away from this issue.
Well, let's get a caller in. We've got William in Washington, D.C. with a call. William, what would you like to ask?
Well, I have a comment. It's not a question. Basically, I wanted to say that, in America, it's not like in most Islamic countries where one person decides what's going to happen in the foreign policy. Here, it's not really up to the president to decide what's going to happen in the next step. It's basically, he has to take into consideration, what's the Congress going to think about what what he is going to do or say. And plus, he has to take into consideration the Jewish lobby and the Zionist Christian, right-wing extreme Christians who are represent the majority of Americans.
So what I'll do then, I'll ask Rashad Hussain this. Then, to what degree is the president manacled? I mean, he's got so many interests he has to manage.
Well, I mean, on this particular issue, we are going to continue to work for a solution that's in the best interests of the United States, in the best interest of Israel, and the best interest of Palestine and the countries in the region, and that is to continue to work towards a two-state solution. I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that that is the direction that we need to move in, and there's no doubt about the fact that that's the direction we will continue to move in.
Before I get a caller in, let me just ask you the reaction of the OIC, or Special Envoy to the Organization of the Islamic Conference. It's representing Muslim interests and large, now 57 members, I think. What reaction have you had from the OIC?
Well, I mean, there's been reaction from numerous countries in the OIC. I don't want to speak for any of those countries on this issue. They've issued,
as a group.
Yes, they've issued their own statements and are obviously concerned, just as the United States is concerned with the loss of life that has occurred.
Let's listen to what President Obama said in his Cairo speech about U.S. commitment to the Palestinians. This is what he said last year in Cairo.
They endure the daily humiliations, large and small, that come with occupation. So let there be no doubt. The situation for the Palestinian people is intolerable, and America will not turn our backs on the legitimate Palestinian aspiration for dignity, opportunity, and a state of their own.
And just to follow up with an email we got on the issue of what's happened since then, Adam Vargic in the UK wrote in saying, President Obama has changed the rhetoric and climate, but nothing on the ground. There have been no real policy changes, and this is a result of the U.S.'s relationship with Israel. So I wonder, how is President Obama going to balance the pressures of dealing with Israel and the Palestinian people, especially with the current administration in Tel Aviv? Yes,
I mean, our commitment remains the same, just as the President articulated last year in Cairo. We see the current humanitarian situation as unsustainable and unacceptable, and we will continue to work with the Israelis to ensure that humanitarian aid is able to flow into Gaza. At the same time, we're moving forward in a number of areas which the President articulated in Cairo. And one of the fundamental messages of Cairo was that as the United States continues to work on the tough political issues, and while those are front and center, and the President wanted to address those issues directly, there is also room for partnership in a number of areas where we share mutual interest. And some of those areas include educational programs, entrepreneurship, health, science, technology, interfaith initiatives, and we're moving forward on those areas as well in a number of ways.
Is Benjamin Netanyahu someone President Obama can do business with? Of course, it's very much in the media, the kind of clashes they have.
Of course, and of course Israel remains a strong ally of the United States, and we will continue to work with the Israelis in making sure that we reach the best outcome for this situation and that we continue to work towards a two-state solution.
So you don't see any personal issue getting in the way here between the two presidents, the President and the Prime Minister?
No.
We've got a caller on the line from Virginia. Fatima on the line. What would you like to ask, Fatima?
My question is, we keep having lots of attacks about the Arabs. I'm an American Muslim, and I'm kind of tired of it. And I have voted for Mr. Obama, stayed in line for hours for him to change what has been going on in years. I've been in the States for 23 years, and nothing has been done. They promise, and always goes down the drain, like they say. I would like to know what he's going to be doing about what just happened with Israeli against the humanitarian people.
Fatima, thank you. Actually, there's one thing that's come out in the news and that there hasn't been much response from the White House or any of the U.S. administration, is the issue of the young Muslim American killed by Israeli soldiers on the flotilla. That's come out recently in the media.
Yeah, I've just seen some of those on the wires and seen some of those stories, and I think we're still in a position where we're trying to confirm that. Certainly, I'm trying to confirm those reports as well.
Well, obviously, it would be interesting to find out what happens if and when it's confirmed and how the U.S. will react.
Yes.
But let me ask you, the Bush administration said in the last 6 years that the U.S. had chosen stability in the Middle East over democracy. So they supported democracy and, of course, ended up with Hamas, which caused its own problems. President Obama told Cairo last year the U.S. Will respect all elected governments if they respect their people. So I wonder how his view towards Hamas might have to change if he really wants to achieve a sustainable peace there.
Well, I mean, our position with regard to Hamas has been consistent in that they must recognize Israel, they must recognize previous agreements and denounce violence. And I think that then there's opportunity after that. Speaking generally, the United States, of course, has tried to engage with Muslim communities all around the world, and we've seen engagement with some countries that we previously weren't engaged with. And so I think it's a part of a broader effort to really make sure that we're reaching out in every possible way that we can. But there's, of course, some conditions for that as well.
Well, Shaukat's on the line from the UK. Shaukat, what would you like to ask?
Yes, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, a couple of days ago, the Mossad intelligence service reported to its parliament in Israel that Israel is becoming a burden to American national interest. How credible is that? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
So basically what he's asking is that it seems that there's a recognition within Israel that the American-Israeli tie, the relationship might be finding some cracks in it, that Israel may be seen as a burden to America.
Well, we think it's in everyone's national security interest to keep continuing to push towards the goal that the President outlined, which is a two-state solution. That's in the interest of Israel, of the Palestinian Authority, and of the United States, and of course, the people on the ground. And it's the people that really suffer the most. And so we'll continue to work towards that solution.
Rashad Hussain, don't go away. We have a few more questions. We've got a short break now. When we come back, a look at how the Obama administration is planning to revive the stalled Middle East peace process. Don't go away. We'll be right back.